Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with our first grand finalist, the three-time and current world champion, and widely considered to be the greatest player of all time. The Zerg in the red, the finisher. It's Serral. Facing off against the 9-time GSL champion, the Terran in blue, the man, the myth, the Maru. In a best-of-9 Terran versus Zerg grand finals to the $10,000 Pigsty Festival number 7. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button. Maybe even subscribe. And we got to the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are you at? 1,826 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As the first Reaper comes in, pokes, prods, and makes the drones' lives uncomfortable, the Zerglings' lives hopefully short, and forces Serral to dodge into a Spore Crawler, stretch himself out so he doesn't stretch into the unit's loss tab. But the early aggression, Serral with only 2 Zerglings to start, already maybe cutting some very short corners in order to try to keep an edge, but... what? What? Oh, sorry. Enough filler. That's a lair. I know what a lair looks like. I've done this for 16 years. Serral is building a lair at the 2-minute... That's not how you do... That's not how you... What? The Reaper looking around, and this is so obscenely early that even Maru probably... He might suspect an all-in. But the magnitude, the speed, the boldness, the aggression, other adjectives? What? This is the quickest lair I think I've seen in a professional game in months. And it doesn't seem like it is the end goal itself. Where are we going from here? He's getting 3 roaches, which is not enough. The 3 sloaches is nothing. Though it might be enough to help boxes. Oh, wow! What a save! Serral shuts it down before it even starts. Maru clearly suspecting something like roaches, which means you're not going to have very many Zerglings with speed. But Serral with the Evo Chamber block is able to box out the early Hellions and Reaper, which is usually not potentially devastating. But when you're at less than 40 drones and also desperately want to keep them from scouting your tech, it's just speed roaches, which the Overseer coming in, this already gives away. I think he may have seen the speed and snipes off the Overseer. Gets it at the last second. Actually supply blocks Serral just a bit, but he's got more on the way. It's a 3-2-1-1 from Maru. All right, there are only 3 things guaranteed in life: death, taxes, and Maru's 3rd command center. And he built it where the first Overlord could see it, which eventually became an Overseer, which eventually became dead. But like and subscribe for existential dread. +1 ranged attack and carapace. So the reason you don't usually rush tech like this is if they figure out what you're doing. The Terran, all they have to do, well, if they knew for a fact this was speed roaches, which I think he does now, the main vulnerability is the immobility. The medevacs, able to run them around in circles. There's very limited queens, 3 in total, which means not even any ability to take them down quickly. But this is a battering ram right now. A battering ram in a tunnel, because tunneling claws are on the way. He's already got road speed. Serral is rushing burrow move. I can truly say I may have seen it before, but in my advanced age, it's been so long. Tunneling Claws Roaches Rush. And this has successfully kept Maru at bay. Maru went for the 3rd CC. He went for the barracks behind. He didn't have a bunch of Hellions or a Banshee to continually scout. He's just got the more conventional kind of frontal attack units. Yeah, you can have medevacs and all that, but that means not only has Serral cut some corners, limited his economy, but, oh wow. Maru picked up into 2 medevacs and then immediately realized, wait a second. Serral is like 4 or 5 different dimensions of attack. He's going to have a Dropper Lord, Burrow Move Roaches. He can go up, down, all around, and maybe directly at him, but This is, I want to say genius, but I'm going to reserve my final assessment until we see the results. Right now, Maru does not have any missile turrets. He doesn't have any detection. He's in the main. Scans are going to be the only detection. The roaches are going to live up to their name more than almost ever before. And the roach is down the center. He's building a missile turret, but it's too late. Surprise! He's right on top of the tanks from underneath. Burrows again. There's just no detection. He's in the main. The natural, still a roach. The third base, he cleared out the tanks. And Maru is down 50 supply 7 minutes into the game. 21 SCVs dead. Serral has lost 6 roaches. I have not seen such a comprehensive dismantling. My mind... Well... Okay. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Serral, far ahead on supply. But Maru's army is still intact. He lost a couple tanks. He lost only 1 Marine. There's still roaches in the main. But Maru has 75 army supply of Marines and Marauders, and those medevacs I was talking about, which are the greatest weakness here for Serral. He has really no anti-air effectively. A few queens who can throw some knitting needles and angry words at them. But the knitting crew is not nearly enough to deal with this magnitude of Terran. A bunch of dudes with drugs and guns is Terran's normal way of handling things, and that's been true for however much lore you'd like. Loses a few Marines, but snipes off the 4th hatchery, curtailing some of Serral's lead, but another Sloach drop just casually strolling in with the dropper lord. It doesn't need speed. It gets there quickly enough. And the roaches are caught. Does he have concussive shells? No, and that means Serral a second scan to get 2 roaches. Oh. He may never financially recover from this. Each mule you drop is worth about 5 SCVs mining, gets you 200 to 250 minerals. Some of the details might apply, but every single scan. And for the first time, I think this is a valid argument in quite a while. Because Terrans will tell you that, well, whenever you scan, you're hurting your economy. And context very much matters. When you have 10 orbital commands, it does not matter. When you have 3, it does. And right now, as Maru is desperately trying to maintain something resembling an army, while still building up the economy, every one of those scans hurts and puts him further behind Serral. But he's able to drag himself back with those first medevacs. There's still a Reaper, or there was, able to scout. Serral has a hive done. He's got 3 Vipers on the way. He's transitioning into Lings. I'm surprised we don't see Banelings, but they might not be necessary here if you have the Vipers to help negate the critical mass of tanks and Marines. Liberators for Maru. Ghosts are a distant dream, as he doesn't nearly have the economy, and honestly, there's no reason to go Ghosts unless you see Hive Tech units. Whether it be Ultras, Broodlords, or Vipers. And even then, Vipers are... just build a couple Vikings. Serral is maxed out. He did all of this, and he's maxed out before 10 minutes. 80 drones. 5 bases now. Double upgrades, working on +3 and adrenal glands. And maxed out. What a revolutionary style. And so I want to point out, in this same tournament, not a few days before this match, Serral lost 4-2 to Maru. He lost 4-2. And I'm not saying that can't happen again. Well, I am, because it's a best of 9. But we did not see this strategy at all. I feel like Serral may have been... I don't think he came up with an entirely new game plan in 2 days. I think he was keeping his powder dry. Playing it like a real strategy game. As... What a play. But he's no Shakespeare yet. Here come the Vipers, though. Siege tanks, Blinding Cloud will negate some of them, but more on the back line. Banelings rolling through. Backing off as soon as he sees the sheer amount of siege. A Venn diagram of freedom from the Liberators. And the siege tanks behind will hold the line. And there's enough bio from Maru. Yes, I've sung Serral's praises off-key maybe a little bit, but Maru, as he always does, survives. His specialty. Just not dying until his opponent eventually exhausts themselves on the sheer level of defense. The master internal Terran, but he's not required to stay back. More like a porcupine Terran. Don't get close. You might get the quills. And the analogy kind of falls off when you start to try to factor in medevacs and liberators. But we're moving on. 4 dropper lords on the way, 2 medevacs. Is he going to drop banelings? Meanwhile, Serral, the map is dark and full of Terrans, but he's lighting it up so well. He's got burrowed Zerglings. He's got overlords. He's got creep spread absolutely everywhere. Everything except right outside Maru's base. But here we go. Maru snipes off a hatchery. He's going to kill off these dropper lords in a fortuitous pathing, but here comes Serral blasting through the planetary fortress, crashes the banelings in, throws up the corrosive vials, knocks out a siege tank, misses the other one with a couple. A bit of repair. But Serral again will pull back. Maru destroyed technically more resources, but Serral denied the economy yet again, and his income going to the moon. At least the income lead. 4,000 minerals a minute to just 1,500. 1,000 gas apiece. But honestly, Serral's done a great job of minimizing. He's only lost 1,800 gas, despite using banelings and vipers. Maru's lost slightly less, but he's mostly reliant on SCVs and marines. There's already a greater spire. You got a spire and now a greater spire. Maru's got 3 more command centers on the way. 4 more command centers on the way. Using them not only as the potential mining locations, but stopping blocks and economic bolsters. The dropper lords are finally loaded up. Well, about to be. It looks like Serral's going to try to divide and conquer yet again. His last foray into a more ground-based army before he focuses maybe on the Greater Spire. But here we go. The drops headed into the main base. 1 dropper lord taken down, outflanked by missile turrets. But the drops on the other side. Serral moving in the planetary fortress. There's only 1 siege tank here. He's going to be able to take it out. The roaches in the main base. The drops at the back. As both sides land into one another. But the planetary going to be taken out yet again. The ghosts will be cut down by roaches. Which is such a rare but welcome sight. And meanwhile, the drop in the main will be cleaned up by the queens. The vipers. Get over! No. Okay, he's got it. He's got it. And Serral, he cleared out the base. There's another drop to the top right. These are changelings in the main, always distracting me on the minimap. But Serral slaps down the drop to the left, pushes it away on the right, and knocks out another base down the center. But Maru seems to have always another in reserve. He's down to 3 orbital commands still. Of course, the number has kind of gone back and forth. He's lost 4 command centers in total. Meanwhile, the Vipers slurping out some more energy. Another drop is loaded up. But Serral at 126 Zerglings. He hasn't added Corruptors. He's not going for the Broodlords yet. He's going to try to just pick Maru apart. And so far, Maru holding, but not thriving. As the Zerglings are overrunning the main base. He can take out the missile turrets, burrow the Zerglings, make it that much more difficult. And another attack already setting up for the base that isn't even landed yet. Widow Mines could take big bites out of the Zerglings, and indeed they do. But, and the Ghost will line up a volley on some Overseers, which is better than nothing, I guess. There's some burrowed Zerglings. He spots a few of them. There's even more in the core. The reactor is burning. Rome is burning. Carrick is burning. Changelings taken out, but nevertheless, Maru persists. Still, near 200 supply. I think he lost the Ghost Academy outright. Can't build anymore. An armory as well. Serral loads up for another round. Another 100 Zerglings, however many Banelings. The Vipers at full energy. Blinding Cloud on the back line. 3 more tanks ripped apart. The SCV's on the run. And Maru continues putting out fires. But Serral, ever the arsonist. There's still a couple Zerglings in the main. Did he cancel that Nidus? No, he's getting a second Nidus. And those Zerglings, I feel, are going to have another card to play. Somehow, without opposable thumbs. The Broodmore Zerglings kind of have hands, which is weird. You think their touch is soft? Or coarse? Anyways, another drop is loaded up. There's still a Zergling burrowed by the planetary fortress, for what it's worth. The Lurker Den is on the way, and Serral. The thing is, no matter how much damage you do, no matter how many units you destroy, no matter how many bases you bash, if Maru gets to 200 supply a Ghost Liberator, even for Serral, that is a very difficult army to dismantle. Another planetary down. The Ghosts, very hard to interrupt without infestors, which, curiously, we've seen actually none of this, and not because they're super burrowed, but instead, Serral not opting for it. But the Ghost count is getting high enough. 8 Ghosts. Once you get to double digits, it becomes almost impossible for most conventional Zerg armies to engage a Terran who's actually paying attention. Yes, they're fragile creatures, but the list of Ghostbusters is few and far between, especially after those failed adaptations. The Zerglings. Ghost will cloak, clean some of it up, but another 15 SCVs dead. And so far this game, how many SCVs have died? Pop quiz. Did you say 78? Oh my. I'm a little proud of me. Well, you were wrong. It was 77, but still, I'll take it. Oh, I was really hoping for that one. I've had some misses. Anyways, be ready. The Nidus, but Marines will take it out in time. The Zerglings streaming again down the center. Maru with 115 army supply. He doesn't even have +3 infantry armor. I don't know if he lost his engineering base to one of these drops around, but no, he just never got it. He doesn't have high-sec auto tracking nor building armor. He doesn't have this sort of laundry list of Terran upgrades and defenses that he'd love to have that really defines the Turtle Terran. Right now, he's just trying to slap it together. Meanwhile, multiple Vipers. The crowbar to potentially dismantle this. He can yank out the Liberators. Decides instead just leave him siege so he can knock him down with the Ravagers. He's going to hit many of his own Lings and Banes. Acceptable losses. Though, ooh, that Liberator doing a lot of damage. And I feel like this fight kind of turned a corner a little bit for Serral. Over the last 90 seconds, Maru has destroyed 7,100 minerals to 3,300. 1,400 gas to 900. 179 Zerglings, 29 Banes, and a couple of his own siege tanks. I don't actually know how that's counted there, but technically Maru destroyed those resources, so we'll give him credit. Some tactical Niduses, as Serral now has more than his fair share of the map. If we were cutting it in half, well, some halves are more half than others. Serral he just so diligent about refilling. He's only lost 3 Vipers throughout this. Maru has only lost 3 Ghosts. That is really the defining characteristic of both these players. Those fragile, very difficult to control and maintain spellcasters that can win you the game, sometimes almost on their own. These two, by far the best in the world. You might be like, what about Clem? Clem is great at everything, but I'd say Maru's focus on his tactics with Ghosts and late-game Liberators surpasses Clem. Clem's he's a sprinter, whereas Maru is able to run the marathon. Serral, on the other hand, feel like is sitting by a fireplace sipping whiskey while he has thousands of minions create his master plan that he planned years ago. And sometimes it doesn't go well, and he looks at them sternly, like a disappointed father. You know what I'm talking about. Your mother told me. Meanwhile, the Vipers use their energy, but Maru focused on Marauders. And you know, you can't spell Marauders without Maru, so 2 Infestors on the way, as Maru has leaned heavily into the Bio army, kind of shifted out of the Liberators and tanks, things that the Ravagers can take down more quickly, as the full spread of unit compositions. In fact, we're getting a majority of the units that both these players could potentially build. We've got Hydras and Infestors on the way. We still have that Greater Spire in reserve. Meanwhile, Maru, much heavier on the Marauders now. Surprised we don't see any Hellbats mixed in, but the Zerglings once again on top of the siege tanks, and when the defenses are thin, the Zerglings can slip through and pick them apart. Here comes Serral trying to defend the creep. Really only spread out from the hatchery. And it's just not enough. Maru has been putting out fires this entire game. The drones slowly but surely escape into the Nidus. We just transfer them over. Keeps them safe in the network as long as it's not disconnected. Another 15 SCVs dead. Oh, the Tyranny. 44 SCVs remain. But he's up to 7 orbital commands, which gives enough mules that the income gap is not nearly... The stimulus checks have come in. And Serral... Well, Serral has lost 7,000 more resources. 300 less gas. 666 Zerglings. Make of that what you will. But that is the defining characteristic of this game. There's a lot of defining characteristics. It's a whole dictionary of them. But Serral losing less gas than a turtle Terran. That is, I cannot stress. Well, there's one person who can do that. And not even on a regular basis, but usually more often than not. And you're watching it. Now the Widowmons taking out the Zerglings, streaming through. Yanks the Liberators. He doesn't have enough Ravagers to knock him down, but he does have the Hydras to help out. The Banelings crashing in, and enough of them deal with anything on the ground. Quantity has a quality all its own. But Serral, again, is eventually beaten back. But the momentum, it's just Serral gets this advantage. And he never lets it go. The Sandpaper Zerg. Just slowly but surely sanding his way through the Terran. The Zerglings, coarse, irritating. They get everywhere. The drones might need to pop back into the escape Nidus. A few Lings and Banes. Serral constantly with triple-digit Zerglings. But even having things like an escape Nidus. But the double Nidus in the main! He doesn't have lurkers, but does he need them? Maru's scrambling back, but the Nidus will come through. Serral undercuts the base in the bottom left corner, drags the attention away. Wait, did Maru even notice? No! And all it takes is one, and Serral has two! The double Nidus. He's just sending Zerglings through, but he's completely dismantled the base in the bottom left. Another attempted command. Okay, well, there were some drones in the Nidus, which makes things awkward. The orbital command, does he find it? He doesn't have building armor, which makes these Adrenalings so much better. So, Widowmine hits, but he's another objective accomplished. As Serral just constantly rotating around. Maru went back to defend, left the tanks behind, and those few seconds matter. The Zerglings again overrun the siege tanks. And crashing through the front line with the Banelings. Parasitic bomb on some of the medevacs, of which Maru has quite a high amount now. The Vipers will survive. He's still only lost 3 Vipers. 98 more Zerglings in production. This is obscene. Serral, finally, will claim the bottom left corner. I don't know if he'll ever be allowed to mine from it one way or another, but Maru does take the 3 o'clock and drops an emergency mule package, and Serral will spot it with a burrowed Zergling he left behind. The due diligence. There's still a Zergling in the main. Those are changelings on the minimap. Another tactical Nidus. Lurkers on the way. He's got a laundry list of upgrades, including... Wait, does he have the lurker upgrades? A mistake? It's not like he can't afford them. Serral does not have either lurker range nor burrow speed, which actually I think is quite a mistake going for lurkers at this stage. He'll notice the moment he tries to use them, but wow, everything's all stacked up here. Hard to tell what's even going on, but there's plenty of Banelings trying to fill in the gaps. He attacked into an entrenched position, so that way he could get the lurkers at the back. The drones escape into the Nidus as they're being transferred over. Maru going for the base. The drones! The drones will save the day. The drones are in the main base as well. The 25-minute drone rush from Serral, as he just throwing everything. If he had one, a kitchen sink I think would be involved as well. This base is almost entirely mined out. There's only a few hundred gas, but the planetary is in the way, so he'll remove it. Maru with 11 ghosts, but he's been drowning here under 10,000 feet of Zerglings. This is... Oh, no. The orbital command is burning. Did he notice? Yes. He still has 5 orbital commands, but Serral clearly rotating around. So there's a sensor tower spotting all this. He knows the Zerg are coming. He cannot get out. They are coming. Serral is now success. I really thought the game would either end. Oh, the hold position, hold fire lurkers. Hello? Oh, he's gonna wait till mid-fight. Oh, actually, a big mistake out of Serral. I don't think he actually... Yeah, he let him go, but... You know, I don't think the lurkers were really the relevant part there. The other 100 supply of Zerg did well enough, as Maru has put on a clinic in survival. But... not losing is a whole long way from winning. Serral sanding him down. And Maru even still has some money, but his production has been cut down. His add-ons have been uninstalled. He only has 2 tech labs and a reactor. He can't even build siege tanks. He has a non-reactored start. Serral, this... I know. Every time we see Serral, it's like, this is the best Zerg I've ever seen. And does it stop being less true just because it happened a month ago? Did you expect him to get worse? What are these drones doing here? Well, proving he's human. Or he just wants to free up supply, otherwise the blinding clouds. The banelings rolling through. The medevac's already badly bruised and running out of units to heal either way. He never got a fusion core building armor. Maru fighting for his life for nearly 30 minutes straight after the Roach burrow move rush all the way to pretty much everything else but Ultralisk. 108 more Zerglings, and through all the fire and fury, Serral with 100 supply lead with 3/4 of the bases on the map, yet somehow still within a few thousand resources lost. 1,114 Zerglings. 1,700 less gas. But he never got that lurker range upgrade, so he's pretty much a total noob, right? Serral has mined out of pretty much his entire half of the map, but thankfully Maru's is still pretty open for business. Finally, another... That was the 4th Viper. He hadn't lost a Viper for 10 minutes, despite using them in every single fight. That is obscene. That is incredible. That is inspiring. And distressing. Serral, with an absolutely immaculate and defining victory, will take the lead. At the end of the game, I want to point out, he had 500 minerals, and he wasn't maxed out. That is a testament to Maru's tenacity. Truly. It wasn't like he was just in the game out of spite. There's a real chance. If Serral kind of miscued even one fight, if he lost a couple more Vipers in each of those fights, then suddenly we go from a game where Serral is just drowning him to one where he's forced to be less aggressive. He simply doesn't have the resources. He's fighting a war of attrition. And, unexpected losses can lose you it quickly. But, oh my. He built infestors at the very end. I don't know if he had them. I don't know how you follow that up. And I need to talk. If the game had just ended with burrowed roaches, I would have actually... In fact, I would not have minded for one, but I need to break that down. Maru did not expect it at all. That was, again, I truly believe Serral keeping his powder dry. Because, let me paint the picture, the story of how this went. Sure, these videos may not have come out in the same time frame. Because, I like to give them some room to breathe. Unlike Maru, apparently. But, so, in the upper bracket finals, Serral lost to Maru 4-2. He played a very conventional kind of like sit back, macro up 3 base versus 3 into the rest of the map. And it was really good, really close. But Maru is a master of the late game. If he goes into the late game with either even or a slight advantage, he's the Serral of Terran when it comes to it. But then we got to do or die. You lose this series, you're out of the tournament. Technically, that was not it against Maru. He was still in the tournament. He fought his way through. He beat Hero, who either had a mental breakdown or the best day of his life. It's unclear what happens when he loses or when he wins. But Hero had a hero moment. And then he beat Clem. 4-1. 2? 4-1. Either way, just before this, where he broke out a new Hydra build. Hydra Rush. Like, Serral has been holding on to these lair tech builds, I feel. And this is the biggest tournament since the Liu Cup All-Star Finals, I believe. A couple months before. So, I truly believe Serral playing the... And this is why Serral doesn't play in weekly tournaments. Well, maybe besides he doesn't need to for whatever reason, but... I think Serral has realized you have to do something different now with Zerg. It's no longer true to say that Zergs adapt. I think because of the sheer level that everyone is at, and Zerg's comparative lack of mid-game efficiency. Like, against Maru and Clem, it doesn't matter if you know what they're doing. They're going to do the same build almost every time. If you just let them do it, it's death by 1,000 cuts. Those cuts are bullets, usually. So, Serral, in a significant reevaluation of Zerg, has become the aggressor yet again. The Zerg Rush, if you would, becoming relevant. But the thing is, as a conventional Zerg Rush of just send it and hope they're not looking, clearly doesn't work. Almost every build of both Terran and Protoss, and Zerg to an extent, is designed to counter that. Whether it's having Banshees or Medivacs early, just setting up your wall off. So Serral does everything but. He dropped Burrow Move Roaches in. You can't be more circumspect. You can't be more indirect than that, I think. Like, literally going into the air to drop them beneath the ground. And I would say that's a play that only works once, but it didn't really seem like Maru had an answer. He just treated the symptoms. So, of course, he did go for Medivac first instead of a Tech Lab Starport. Having the Zerglings just get in and see what? How does he do this? Just bribes an SCV. Like, oh, it's so cute. Yeah, let him in. I want to pet him. Ah, my face! Sorry. And now we're back to a much more conventional 3-base. And the thing is, Serral with an extra level of confidence. You rarely get a Zerg. He got the Zerglings in. He saw there was no, like, second factory, which is something Maru's been doing a lot lately. He saw that there's no armory, maybe even a fusion core. He confirmed this is the 1-1-1. The barracks, the factory, the starport, Destiny Cloud Fizz build. I think some sort of fever dream called it many moons ago. But the Banshee is on the way across, and Maru with the 3 racks behind. Lair is on the way at a much more conventional timing. The Banshee does not have cloak. Which means, get off my... This is restricted lair space! You changed that up mid-sentence, Susan? Well, technically they're not on the creep if they're flying. Like, we're on the creep because we don't fly. Stop bringing that up. Well, it's true, Brenda. You're gonna hate me for telling the truth? I'm just being brutally honest. No one asked. I'm just... Sorry. Hell, I'm speaking my truth. Please. I will not apologize. Sorry. A hive mind. I know. The creep spread is quite oppressive already. Nearly to the halfway mark of the map. Infestation pit is on the way. Serral just takes out one of the Hellions. How convenient. Taking down the rocks that almost nobody remembers even exist until the siege tanks are in a very uncomfortable position, firing from around the angles you can't deal with. Just the due diligence. Just simply, in order to emulate Serral, get an advantage at the 5-minute mark and then carry it for the next 25 minutes to victory. So just jot that down, like we got right here. Thank you. Hi, what? 6-minute hive? So, this is another Zerg rush. It is much more technologically advanced, but a 6-minute hive. He's cut out everything but Lings and Banes. In fact, I think he started the hive before 1-1 upgrades. It might have been slightly after. 79 drones to 65 SCVs. Before either of these players really going to meet on the field. We saw that one Hellion die, mostly because the Hellion was too lazy to back off, but the Banshee driven back on the other side. More hatcheries, including a macro hatch in the main for extra larvae. And Maru, this time, oh, there's a changeling hiding under in the 5x5. Ooh, what a nice turret you have here. That's so weird. Why does he breathe like? I don't. What a play. I choose to believe that's intentional. He put it there because it's effectively impossible to see that Marine. Maru does not see the little indicator of how long the changeling has left before it explodes spontaneously. Doesn't do damage, unfortunately. A Viper Rush. With adrenal glands and mass Zergling. Serral. Now, the main weakness here, if the Vipers don't nail the Blinding Clouds, Maru's army is just going to be better. He's going to have 2-2. He's going to have siege tanks, Marines. He'll have a similar army supply. But on creep, obviously the Lings and Banes are quite a threat. The Vipers slurping out energy from the Natchery as we're just playing this full macro game. 11 creep tumors at a time metastasizing across the map as it continues to get completely covered in creep. 5 more Dropper Lords on the way as Serral definitely utilizing them to great extent. Not relying on them, but honestly a more reliable way, especially in the mid to late game, than a Nidus. One, a Nidus is very expensive on the gas. And 2, it can be killed. Each one... Oh, Maru retargeting the Widow Mines as Serral tries to defuse it. Meanwhile, the Lings and Banes. There are 112 Zerglings, 35 Banelings. Banshee still around. And Maru, they're dancing around the Widow Mines. Will they, won't they? Eventually they will. Alright, you give them... Like, once they run out of options, they explode. Which... good for them, I guess, but an Ultraless Cavern is on the way. And Serral, seeing the Widow... I think that's a reaction to the Widow Mines. If it was more siege tank heavy, Ultra's usually less of a choice. But against Widow Mines, they can shrug them off. And Nidus Network as well. The Viper's in position. He throws a Blinding Cloud. The Blinding Cloud as well in the Planetary. And the Planetary just deleted by the Banelings, which is a costly expense. But obviously not... Is this a fake? Or is he just chilling? So Maru knows they're out there. He's got 2 Vikings on the way. So it feels like... Yeah, he actually gave... I think Maru built the sensor tower after the Dropper Lords were already hanging out over there, though. So, unfortunately for them, it's all scouted out. Meanwhile, though, the Lings and Banes, Maru on the open field, paying attention, picks up Gonna lose a whole lot of these units. Potential parasitic bomb. Notice, it's interesting that Serral holds on to that energy for so long. And then he just uses the parabomb, sure, why not? And then tries to drag the Widow Mines in. This is a scrappy fight, which is a nice caster way of saying really sloppy from both sides. Loses both Vipers, multiple medevacs dead, dozens if not hundreds of Zerglings. Over the last minute, 146 Zerglings dead. Serral losing 2 Vipers, which is half the amount of Vipers he lost the entirety of last game. So, an awkward engagement angle, to say the least. But Serral is still... What does he have? 8 hatcheries. He's got everything on his side of the map. The dots on the mini-map don't even... They start to just... It doesn't even look like creep spread anymore. It's like chicken pox at this point. I mean, creep spread is already kind of uncomfortable. I think creep is more slimy or spongy. Or, like... No, those are probably the top 2, I think. Well, the Zerglings are fighting Marines and Marauders that have an upgrade advantage with no Banelings. And that went exactly as well as you might expect, assuming you expected them to do very badly. Hatchery taken out. And this time around, Serral did not build that massive advantage. Or even really any sort of advantage. He rushed up to Hive Tech, but he wasn't able to translate that into a decisive sort of position. Maru still has a lot of work to do, as the Spire is on the way. 3-3 for Serral, so it's only going to get easier over time. If that's, well, it's all relative. But the Lings and Banes are crashing through the 12 o'clock. Ooh, struggle with that one. Just like Maru struggling to defend his outlying planetaries, he's got 5 command centers on the way. The Banelings crash into a group of Marines. Serral's just taking the hatchery in the bottom left corner, expanding like the medium AI when it doesn't know how to attack. Brandon, no! Oh, a couple queens are taken out, offered up the pathfinding. Less than ideal. But overall, Serral still casual 201 supply. Ultralisk Cavern is done. 3-3 on the way. Maru might be putting together more CCs than a poorly formatted corporate email chain, but Serral just... a hatchery at 275 minerals is easy enough to replace, and if you mine from it for a minute or two, it's already paid for itself, though ideally you don't pay too many times over. The Viper, most Vipers being zoned out by a couple Vikings, but the flood of Zerglings and Banelings. Maru, scrambling back to defend. The Banelings just kind of idling by. The Widow Mine, oh my, that's going to be a lot of damage. That Widow Mine with 15 kills, 15 more SCVs dead. And 3-3 finishes for Serral, but right after the fight concludes. So far, Serral has lost 20,000 resources to just 11,000 Amaru. The efficiency difference compared to last game is stark at this point. And the King of the North is struggling to find any sort of purchase against this sort of army. Another wave of Banelings. The Vipers will refill some energy. 20 more Banelings might be enough to break through. 4 more Ultralisks will be a lot to contend with as well. But Maru's at 200 supply, and he's got a lot of initiative. He's knocked back the creep spread, he's slapped down a couple hatcheries, and he's working on more. 3-3 done. Already working on the advanced mech upgrades, +3 mech weapons, and +2 mech armor being added in. Meanwhile, the Vipers over to the left side. The planetary fortress will be taken out pretty much for free. I mean, it's going to cost some Banelings, but Maru. And Banelings just continue to roll through as most of Maru's army is committed. The Queens will burrow in Maru. I don't think he noticed. What a save. Shh, be quiet. Meanwhile, the Lings and Banes actually break through. Maru committed so much of his army supply to the top right corner. He was vulnerable over to the left. And now the Zerglings are cutting through the depots. Half the orbital commands are in the air, finally landing. The base was taken out. 68 SCVs remain. Infestors in production. Widow Mines left behind. The Queens did survive. The Widow Mines, well, it could have been worse, but certainly could have been better. Taking out another huge group. But look at the supply. Serral with 163 and less money in the bank. And as a arguably great man Hydra once said, when I'm really far ahead and I want to lose, I build Ultras. Ultras have been buffed several times over since then. But, in a position where you cannot afford to replace them, Ultras are a battering ram. They get you in the door to hopefully have a bunch of Zerglings and Banelings to come streaming in behind. Ooh, and to burrow the Infestors. Clearly, Serral, a little bit of a struggle on the control. Is that Microbial Shroud on the way? Indeed it is, since we never see it. Microbial Shroud reduces all range damage for 100 energy after you get the upgrade. From the Infestor, it reduces all range damage by 50% underneath the Shroud. For all units underneath the Shroud, by the way. Range damage taken, sorry. That, to be clear, it doesn't reduce your own damage. So, the only issue, well, the main issue, is the lack of energy on the Infestor when you could be going for Fungal. Speaking of, the Infestor on the back, the first one gets scanned. A bit bold, trying to slip underneath in plain sight, but another Fungal catches a handful of Marauders and a couple Vikings, but there's really no answer to the Vikings. The Vipers have to stay far back until they're finally needed in the fight. And Serral is not even maxed out. He comes in for another round. The Viper's finally showing up, throws out a Parasitic Bomb on a single Viking, which, a man of your talents, gets knocked out by the second one. And just these two Vikings, the severe lack of anti-air. There's not even queens with this, 4 in total. Zerglings will cut right up the center, and he tore down the wall earlier, made it easier to get into the natural, but the pressure is on. And Maru is pushing him to the limit. He unburrows the Infestor in the safe range of the siege tanks within the minimum firing distance, and actually manages to get a pretty huge Fungal. But the timing may have been a bit off. The Ghost lands some shots. The Banelings will interrupt those more calculated snipes. And a brutal fight for each side. But 2, maybe 3 out of 3 Ultras will be taken out on the way out. Meanwhile, Zerglings burrowed pretty much everywhere. Maru maintains the momentum. The Ultras did not kick in before Maru already had the critical mass of Terran. And despite the massive size of the Ultralisk, Maru seems to have more weight to throw around. Ultra. A whole bunch of Zerglings. There's barely any Banelings left over, though. And without Infestors and or Banelings, it gets more and more difficult to actually challenge the Ghosts. Though, only 2 Ghosts. So, it could be worse. You really need several Ghosts per Ultra, but the Marauders really fill in the gaps. Having a few dozen Marauders makes up. At this point, the Ghosts are mostly relegated to EMP/snipe on Infestors, which, not as reliable as sniping Ultras, but certainly more impactful when you do land it. And Serral, despite all this, well, the income has been swinging back and forth as the mules drop and the bases are lifted or taken out. Another slugfest between these two, but a much more even one. Right up until that Fungal lands, and a whole chunk of Marauders will be taken out with ease. Some very bold Banelings there. The rest of the army moving in, scans everything literally into the corner. And Serral gonna try to punch back, but the Widowmine zoning out. Zerglings on the left, Ultra, and a Planetary taken out. And Marauder, Maru, sorry, Freudian slip. Maru takes 1 step forward. Feels like he has to take 2 steps back. The thing is, Serral is feigning strength when we can see that he's relatively weak. Even Maru, I don't think, is able to assess so accurately the situation. He probably thinks that Serral has enough to refill again and again. And Serral has done nothing to disabuse him of that notion. Another wave is coming in. Serral's at 175 supply. 1 bad fight, and he is possibly out of the game. Whereas Maru can afford some more losses because he has 9 orbital commands. So the tanks and Widowmines just standing by the picket line here could be dismantled potentially by Ultras and Zerglings, but Serral doesn't have that extra supply nor time to help out. But the Serral Fester, never mind, gets obliterated by that scan. Another Fungal though on the back line. The Blinding Cloud, Wombo Combo, the Banelings, the Ultras, and the Zerglings, oh my, just crashing through. He finally got it. The Infestor landed the Fungal. the main army. The blinding cloud actually pushed the units forward into the... I need to see that again. Did that work exactly? I'm sorry. I don't know if that worked exactly how I thought, but the blinding cloud forcing the units forward. Not that, but that was very sad, that infestor. But Serral comes in. Blinding cloud pushes those units forward, catches even a couple more ghosts in the fungal, and potentially stops the tank from sniping the infestor. And that split second just turned this whole game on its head as he cleaves through the heads of about half of Maru's army in seconds. Right now, Maru, he has 2 Marines and 1 Ghost, 9 siege tanks, 7 Widow Mines, but these are not units that can easily push forward. You need the meat for the, I assume, potato equivalent that is mech units. Don't worry about it. Just moving on. And not only did Serral destroy the army, he defended his bases with that destruction. He's now zoned Maru out of this bottom left corner, though the Liberator going to do what it can to equalize that a bit. Loses a few drones to the Liberator. So, the best defense being a good offense demonstrated to great effect here. There's still 9 orbital commands, but Maru's starting to run out of mineral patches to drop mules on, which is a real concern and becoming more real by the second. Serral has taken the lead decisively, I think, for the first time this game. Despite the relative inefficiency of the unit composition, he found the angle, he found the fight, and here we go again. That the EMP lands on the Vipers. The Infestors targeted. And so far, Maru, he burrowed the Infestor and dodged the shot, but might die to incidental tank fire anyways. And Serral, an awkward fight, but 20 SCVs dead. He keeps fighting on Maru's territory. And an entire stable of mules just dropped. He needs... Well, okay, well, I guess Banelings can get... And he drops one. It's like a Carbot animation here. Believe it or not, orbital energy is not infinite. Though it sometimes feels like it. And he desperately... He needs the scans, too. For the Infestors. Maru, he had the momentum. He had the position. But Serral, the patience. Unequaled. Waiting. Battling around the map. Finally finding this fight. The Corruptors, Widow Mines, will actually take out the Vipers. Though helps out. There's another Infestor. There's 2 Infestors in the mix here, and that choke point is way too strict for the Ultras. Meanwhile, Serral is just casually long-distance mining from Maru's once and future fourth. Oh, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yeah, this is happening. Both sides mining from the 9 o'clock base. But I think it's approaching midnight for only one of them. Serral has done it again. And with his classic play, the Infestors, at the perfect moment, literally perfect. He needed it. That was his one shot, his one opportunity, and he captured it. The Ultra's trundling through. Maru with a massive bio ball, but he has to retreat. That Infestor, he gets the EMP. He's trying to put the Ghost a little forward, but the Ultra's just shoving him out of the way. 4 Zerglings just set the orbital command aflame. Ah, that's just rude. Hello! Serral is a placeholder hatchery, but why not? Who's gonna stop him? Maru driven all the way back. The Ultra's targeted, but a Fuggle from below holds down another chunk. And yet again, Maru whittled down to almost nothing. Serral with 100 supply lead. Just a few corruptors mixed in to discourage the Liberators, knock out the Vikings, and deal with the medevacs. And Serral, after losing just 743 Zerglings. Am I right? Take your pick. 1,065. Not even close. It felt like they were, well, Serral constantly using the Zerglings to cover for everything else. That was a much more costly game. He lost so many Banelings, so many Infestors. But Maru couldn't translate the arguably better unit composition into a better position. And that means Serral takes another one. Wow. What an absolute clinic. Just slightly lose almost every single fight until you can win one. So hard it turns the game on its head. Just that constantly, I feel like we need like a 4-camera split screen like those World of Warcraft raids. Yeah, I was watching. Okay, I'm kind of sucked back in a little bit, but don't judge me. Judge me a little, actually. I deserve it. But Serral holding on to his bases, constantly dragging Maru. It's not like Maru doesn't know what's happening. It's just Zerg units, in an ideal scenario, move faster than Terran. That's kind of their whole thing. Everything has a speed up. Creep itself is a speed upgrade. Like, Serral's swinging back and forth across the map until finally Maru getting caught in the center. And, well, this is the Serral that Zerg players love and Zerg players hate. The Serral that, because at one point, he might land that fungal. Now, patch notes don't give players direct credit. All right? Necessarily. Though I feel like they never credited Beyond with the Reaper nerf, but there was literally one player who was using Reapers all the time. Now, Infestors are not exclusive to Serral. But, I can't think of another Zerg player, or any player, obviously, because only Zerg has Infestors, that out of nowhere, just surprise! Not even necessarily a surprise. Sometimes they're just part of the army, but it's the... Oh, that was cool. Gotta stretch out. It's a dangerous job. Very close to cramping my shoulder. Anyways, how's the back pain, Grandpa? Like and subscribe for existential truth. Okay. All right. But the diligence, that and the Vipers, like literally no one. It is not even close either. Like other players will have moments of genius with Ghosts, with Templar or Oracles. But Vipers and Infestors are uniquely... they're uniquely vulnerable. Neither of them have an auto attack. Both of them can very easily just wander in and die. They're incredibly fragile. And another key point is they don't have much damage on their own. Like, almost every other spellcaster has a way of potentially killing even small amounts of units that are attacking it. A fungal doesn't even kill a Zergling. 25 damage. It used to be 40, an instant. But it's been many, many moons. And also they used to have infested Terrans, but now fungal is 25 damage. But mostly the slow is the relevant part, obviously. Vipers, on the other hand, Parasitic Bomb does a lot of damage, but easily avoidable, and it doesn't do it very quickly. Blinding Cloud is helpful, but these spellcasters, I think, kind of similar to their Brood War versions, to an extent. Incredibly fragile, but obscenely powerful. And only Serral really makes them look that other thing. And thus, why Zerg players both love to see Serral succeeding, and also, every time he does, it's like, oh no, I can barely use Infestors as it is. Like, next patch, Infestors start at 1 HP, like, and don't regen. You must use queens to make... Infestors now take 1 damage per second while burrowed. Who knows? Should stop really throwing out ideas. Dangerous. Zerglings just killed the Hellion. By the way, we're in game 3. In case you are just joining us for some reason, skipping through to see what you're going to balance whine about in the comments. I see you. All right. Not very original, but I appreciate the passion. Is how we're going to phrase that. So, I'd like to parlay a little bit this into... Now, if you're watching this in 2027, wondering why... before I have 10 million subscribers next year. Wondering where it all got started. Well, you're a little further along. But if you are watching this the day it comes out, this weekend, April 11th, I want to say, is Gamers for Giving 2026. For those who don't know, I've done a charity event based in southeastern Michigan, but now worldwide. Essentially putting gaming equipment and support in children's hospitals. As... You know, in children's hospitals, there are people who are afflicted by 2 of the worst things. 1, being sick, and 2, being a child. And it is a really cool niche charity with 1 big event a year. And I'll be streaming, doing some special events, doing angry coaching. I'm going to coerce my wife into playing her ladder games. She does once a year. As well as checking out StarCraft models and stuff like that. So make sure to tune in this weekend and you'll find some info there. Even if I'm not live at the time, there should be some information. If you got the means and motivation, which I'd hope you have the motivation, but the means, well, do what we can. But I'd like to let you know. And of course, you can support them at any time. Registered charity in the US. I think it applies to several other countries as well. But I have a lot of fun with it, and we had a little bit of downtime, and I wanted to segue from that awkward conversation, and then point it out, thus, you know, undercutting it a bit. But where are we? White Rabbit. A new map. There's 6.5 minutes in so far. 1 drone has died to that Reaper. Overlord died to the Viking. Hellions died to the Zerglings, but traded a few in turn. But now, the double drop is... unloaded, and the base will be targeted. Down it goes. The Zerglings. Serral already has a 4th base. That was his 5th that he was working on. 1-1 is already done for Maru. He's got the armory. Starts 2-2, but Serral's only going to be about 15-20 seconds behind. Another attack over to the left side, but Serral had a Zergling there to spot for it, of course. And Baneling speed is still a long way off. There's 1 siege tank, several Hellbats here. And Maru, gonna try to divide and conquer. At least try to take some decent enough trades to maintain parity. Without Baneling speed, this is a lot, even with creep, this is a lot dicier to deal with. Zerglings patrolling, but there's the tank of the high ground, the Hellbats. Burninating through the Zerglings. Tanking some shots with the Queens, but we all know you can take a pounding, Karen. We saw the video. Shut up, Brenda. Sorry. A Hive is on the way. The Zergling's trying to get the wraparound, but there are no Banelings. He gets jammed into a corner. And Maru is able to gun down the Zerglings by the dozen. 10 supply lead, and right now, Serral, he doesn't have the tech to deal with this, really. A huge Zergling counterattack. Maru is mostly set up to deal with this. The Hive is halfway done, but this is actually the ideal scenario for Maru to get some damage. As he's even on upgrades, more army supply, and Serral only has Lings and Banes with no Hive tech yet. No Infestors. The Queen's trying to take out some of the Medivacs, but the Hellbats have done a great job of boxing out the Zerglings. will counterattack, get a single siege tank, then get gunned down several dozen at a time. And look at the supply. Here come the banelings. Picks up a disastrous engage. Ugh. Well, that could have gone better. Not great, not terrible. Maru biting off a little more than he could chew, and the banelings just exploding all over him. Siege tank on the back line. That siege tank racking up 24 kills and counting. Untouched so far. Another double drop adding to the troubles. Hive is done, but Serral unable to get any hive tech. That tank shows up and is immediately taken out, wondering why it was pulled here in the first place. The tank, 35, 40 kills. That quarter is absolutely devastating. Another counterattack. This time banelings involved, and he just tears down the wall. Maru really desperate to lose as many units as possible. Will the tank live? 51 kills! And it will be saved in a badly bruised, yet relatively safe medevac. Kind of a disastrous set for Serral, but the fact that Maru lost so many... Like, we don't usually see those sort of mainling connections, especially on the Zerg side of the map when the Terran has time to set up. But Maru continue to fight into the high ground and underestimating Serral's power. Widowmine diffused, but the Zergling still struggling. Serral didn't get +2 Carapace. I don't know if it was a mistake, like he didn't have the resources when he was looking for it. He did a little bit of damage on the other side, but remember, whenever banelings attack, they die. So each of those banelings expended, even though he killed a lot of Marines, it didn't really translate into a much better position in the game. It just kept him above water, at least for a few more moments. Again, Maru with a 15 supply lead. A Hydralisk den is on the way. Almost, I'm not going to call it a desperate choice, but a difficult one at this stage of the game. You need something that isn't just laying bane against the increasingly effective Marines, Marauders, and Mines, as Maru is going to have 3-3 significantly quicker, though the melee attack actually might have an advantage. It's just Lings and Banes, and Maru's continuing to rally across. Is that the same tank? 59 kills, 61, 64, and it will not be 69. This tank, well, can we see 100 kills? It's possible. The Queen's trooping down. The hatchery transfuses. One of the medevacts is taken out. But the Marines and Marauders, the pressure is becoming almost too difficult to handle. Serral, his creep spread, beaten all the way back to barely outside the hatcheries. The hatcheries themselves taken down. My God. Oh, sweet carrot. He can't even touch him. Oh, trapped in a prison of his own design. Serral set himself up for disaster. The Marines and Marauders. The hero tank is still there. Unfortunately, despite 76 kills, it doesn't get any additional damage. No veterancy here. And I think the tank's about to die unceremoniously to a bunch of Zerglings. Save it, Maru! No! He did! What a save! 77 kill siege tank. 21 HP left over. There's burrowed Zerglings in the third base. Serral still clawing his way into a playable position. But make no mistake, as soon as 3-3 completes, this goes from bad to much better. There and back again. A siege tank story. An unexpected journey indeed, but that tank is still alive. 84, 86, 94. One more shot may have put it in the triple-digit club, which is honestly maybe more rare than... I can't remember the last time I've seen a unit with 3 digits of kills. Maybe a planetary fortress against broodlings, but that doesn't even really count. I don't know. Maru, 3-3 against 3-2. Serral, he has Hydra speed, but no range. Clearly, there's gaps in his composition, in his position. And Maru, this time around, is in the driver's seat. And he's not letting Serral get off this ride. The Zerglings continue. A few Zergling counter here and there. But there's no Ultra Cavern. There's no Lurker Den. There's not even any Vipers. As Maru, another siege tank in the corner, trying to relive the experiences of the hero. Not quite enough, but another hatch taken out. The Marines and Marauders, he's just kiting back. The Zerglings do well after forcing the Marauders and Marines to split, but still down 30 supply. Another wave sent across the map. Maru will not be stopped. As long as the Banelings... In fact, there's not even that many Marines left, so Banelings are of dubious value. They're still kind of required. Can't just be letting the Marines stand their ground, but the Widow Mines covering the siege tanks covering the Marines and Marauders, and Maru covering Serral with a hail of high-velocity gunfire, and making sure Serral's reign of terror doesn't continue as the Terran strike back. Maru's on the board. 600 Zerglings dead in 14 minutes. Serral unable to really find his footing. The first attack, well, the hero tank, 100 kills on a siege tank. That was like not insignificant. I was trying to do the math on 100 Zerglings, but a not insignificant portion of all of the resources lost was that one tank in a absolutely disgusting position, almost impossible to dislodge. And Maru using it to great effect. Serral, for the first time, unable to get his tech. Instead of the quick burrow move roaches, quick ultralists, or hive tech, he had nothing. He just had lings and banes and a prayer. So, bringing us to game... Try to do math for... Oh, now I'm embarrassed. Jimmy, edit this out. All right, I can count to 4. 1, 4. Winter Madness is also the name of the map. As Maru showing he can hang with them. And honestly, all but game 1, there's only been 3 games, but all but game 1 felt like they could go either way. And even game 1 was Serral's advantage the entire time, but it wasn't out of reach. He wasn't lapping him. He was a few steps ahead. And if he stumbled even a bit, Maru was there to pounce. So, and remember the last time they faced, literally like a day before this, Maru won 4-2. That last game was much more reminiscent of the matches we saw there. Another interesting thing, so far Maru has not leaned into the mech army composition. I think we saw it once or twice in the semifinals, but he has not taken us to McDonald's even once. Which I would love to see Serral's answer to it, as the last time he tried it, it was wildly successful. It ended with Maru having battlecruiser dunking on infestors, and Serral looking completely lost right before he lost the game. The biggest issue with mech is the infrastructure cost, is the overhead of building a bunch of factories and armories, all this gas, literally several minutes of gas, just to get your production facilities. So that is a wide timing for the Zerg to potentially exploit. If not to attack, but also to maybe just grab 4 or 5 bases and 80 drones. The bio allows you to put on a lot more pressure, but is a bit more fragile as well, as we saw to some extent in every game, but even the last one. Of course, trading out Marines. If you're trading out Marines for Banelings, it depends on the numbers. That might not be a good trade for Zerg, even if you've stopped them. If the economies are equal and you're trading minerals for gas, that is usually a good investment in the long run. Three command centers before the factory. Right. And he's just building it on the low ground. Did Serral see it? No. It's Maru, so 3 command centers are implied. Sometimes 4. But I think he gives Serral a little more respect than he gives to Shin, who is his favorite punching bag. Fun fact, Shin is... well, not so fun if you're Shin. Maru is 37-0 against Shin since 2013. Including one as Protoss. I don't understand, like, the mental block. The brick wall. In so many games, Shin is winning, too. And then Maru just doesn't die, and then Shin's like, okay, you win then. Throws away 8 Ultras into 5 Liberators and a tiny choke point. Just thought we'd bring that up as an example of what not to do against Maru. That last game, I don't think Serral made big mistakes. It's just Maru got the advantage with a well-timed attack, and Serral didn't have the tech to turn it around. It's possible to not make any strategic mistakes and still lose. In fact, very common in this real-time strategy game with a focus on those first 2 words. And I think that's either what puts off or turns on. Maybe both. I don't know what you're into, but a lot of players, or potential players, is once they realize that it's less about your build order and more about the speed at which you do it. Like, you've probably seen Thermal go mass unupgraded Marines up against Grandmaster players or something like that. And that's not even a crazy one compared to some of the stuff, but it's about speed and priorities. And then, if you keep up on that, you got those 300-400 APM down. And maybe you get to play a strategy game. Which these two very much are, by the way. Right, this is some of the most strategy, no puns or sarcasm intended, I've seen in especially this matchup. Quite a while. Especially for Zerg. Just continue adding on to the description, but Zerg is usually kind of pigeonholed into whatever Serral's been doing lately. But Serral's doing a lot of different stuff. He's got a bunch of Roaches and Ravagers. Like, and Maru has not gone for a Banshee, which means he doesn't have built-in anti-air. He did get a Liberator. Oh, he doesn't have Vision because the Liberator range is less than its actual attack range. But, ooh, kind of painful for the drones. But a bunch of Roaches and Ravagers are knocking on the door, but there isn't even a door. It's just wide open. Shin has left the game, see? He was casting. He casts in Korean. He's actually one of the top... I digress. But... well, that game more one-sided than a Mobius Strip there is Serral with a vengeance and almost a disregard for Maru's existence. Walks over and wins. It just kind of ends. Okay. After all the work that Maru put in the game before it, looking like he regained some momentum, like he had a great shot to turn this around, Serral just backhanded him out of the, by far, the quickest game. Well, 3-1. Okay. That was a hard counter to exactly what Maru likes to do, which is the 3-2-1-1. And clearly, Maru, he did not see the Roaches. So when you don't go for the extra Hellions, you don't get regular vision. It's a lot harder to get vision of things like Roaches coming out. You don't go for the Banshee, you don't have any built-in defense. You're just relying... oh, wow, you're really going to put it all the way out there. You're relying on the Zerg playing normal, for the most part. And, I mean, Serral did a great job to hide it that long, but Maru just died. If he had seen it, there would have at least been a wall. Let alone maybe bunkers on the way, depending on when you could see it, but... well, strategy game indeed. Serral with a 16-16. Interesting hat timing. Maru with... of course, so he's leaving space for an add-on. Really just putting himself out there. Serral's not going to scout this for quite a while, but probably with plenty of time to react to it still. We'll see. And it's just a single Rex. It's not 2 Rex, where you'd usually see Reapers. But he's just going to wall the... I guess that's one way to make sure you have a wall early. So... the Marine... Oh, he's going to try to snipe the Overlord. Serral actually took, like, quite a roundabout pathing. Is that true? I'm not sure. But the Overlord spotted the Marines. He's on the run now. Maru spotted that the Overlord spotted him. Oh, calm down. Overlord's just freaking out. Ugh. Apologies. The Overlord, well, apparently its panic was very... Ooh, it's quite a look. I like the way it feels on tentacles. The Overlord manages to get to a safe pervert pillar, and then he's actually going to move it all the way over to the right side. Serral does not have a 3rd hatch yet. He doesn't know for sure that there's a command center back there. So, of course, there's 3 CCs. Serral is going to go for a lair. Crazy. Maru is going 3cc with the greediest, like, this is fastest upgrade rush territory. Double engineering bay. Meanwhile... Okay. Is this Mutas? It's almost certainly not roaches. He would have already started... Unlikely would have even started Zergling speed if he was going to go for roaches. And the roach warren would have begun by now. So, as potentially a reaction, it's going to be bio again, which bodes better for Maru, more than likely. 4 gases for Serral. Just 2 Hellions to scout for this. Tries to sneak around, well, Creep Tumor eats a couple more hits. And there it is. The Spire for the Mutalisks. And not much of a Mutalisk here. As... Well, Serral can't know exactly the build behind. He can in a moment. The biggest risk is this is some very quick bio timing, like, especially on 2-base. Unlikely, but possible, considering he had no scouting before this point, really. But on seeing the additional barracks... And, well, most importantly, the 3rd command center. He knows. The Mutas are a very real and valid choice. And potentially the best one. As clearly, this time around, Maru will have a wall. In fact, he actually... That's part of why he built the barracks forward, I see. Is in order to snipe the first Overlord, which... Oh, that Overlord eventually got promoted into Overseer. I'm wondering where it went, but... A single Hellion desperately tries to scout, is completely slapped down by the Queens. Maru did see the 3rd hatch on the 9 o'clock position. 7 Mutalisks on the way. The Overseer coming in. Will spot. That's not a 2nd starport. There's no way that would be a 2nd starport. He sees the Mutas will be out by the time the starport finishes. Or about exactly the same time. Which... gives Serral an obscene amount of initiative. Usually, the best defense against Mutas is a good offense. Moving out, trying to deal with them by forcing them to stay back and defend. Maru has 9 Marines and 0 medevacs and 0 missile turrets. He cannot move out. And in fact, staying at home is also not going to be very fun, but... The Mutas, completely unscouted, unwelcomed, and incredibly effective. Snipes off. a couple Marines, 5 SCVs. Missile turret is on the way, can easily be delayed. Serral, with at least 5 mutas, you can easily destroy SCVs in a single volley. Rotates back around. 10 SCVs, all the mutas still alive. They will heal. There's no Whittle Mines yet. Serral, a perfect game thus far. Must have canceled an extractor or something, but... which is... unheard of. For Zerg. Quite literally, right? That does not happen. And I doubt it will stay, but... the siege tank under fire. The missile turret will help zone out. The rest of the Marines stimming forth. So, Maru has 55 SCVs. He's got 1-1 and an obscenely quick 2-2. He's going to have the upgrades. Serral has done a lot of superficial damage. He's killed a medium amount of SCVs. He's lost nothing. But his upgrades are somewhat slower. And does he have Bane speed? Yes. That was first priority. Of course. 4 bases, 80 drones. He's filling in the gaps. The best chance for Maru is get as close to 200 supply as possible and really try to leverage those 2-2... wait, what was that? Contaminate on the +2 weapons. Delaying even more of the potential push out. Serral covering his bases and Maru's about as much as possible. 83 drones. He now has the hatches. Just going to go for the supply depots. Playing it so incredibly safe. Still has not lost a unit. For 8 minutes. While actively... he's not sitting in his base. He's got mutas. Oh my. There's no... does he spot the mine? Oh, there it is. The Widow Mine, of course. Draws first blood. Explosively. No infestation pit. 2-2 upgrades on the way. So Maru does have that upgrade advantage. He has similar army supply. But the Banelings are being added on. Serral. The mutas will force more and more difficult decisions. Like, do you continue to go forward, or do you desperately stim back? And Maru knows he's working against the clock. Eventually, Serral will have the infestation pit, have hive tech. But the mutas and the lings of the Banes are already in the base. The natural's under fire. He could take out the missile turrets, make it that much easier for the mutas. If there's anything left to kill, as 15 SCVs already dead, the missile turret in the main. 17 SCVs and counting. Maru has not started the 3-3 upgrades. I think he probably realizes this game will probably not get there. 88 to 39 workers. Maru will never financially recover from this. His best chance, a small yet real chance of taking such a great fight with better upgraded units and a comparable army size that he can carry it through. The mutas and the lings, cutting off the production, the reinforcements might not be enough to even deal with this. The SCV count is quickly plummeting. The Banelings are rolling in. The move command through to minimize the damage and maximize the health, and Maru actually punches through. But we have to ask ourselves that question. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? Maru at 100 supply. The mutas. Serral has lost 2 mutas. That is... he makes him look positively overpowered. Widowmine does terrible, terrible damage, but the mutas are swinging in. When the fight is already mostly won, the mutas can maybe clean up the scraps. But the due diligence here, he loses the hatchery, a whole lot of lings and banes, but he refuses to lose the mutas. Even if it costs him a lot on the ground, he knows he's going to gain more over time. Lings and banes again. And there's what else is there? The add-ons? Oh, the SCVs. And oh no. That's it. Serral just completely eviscerates Maru and goes to match point. Maru had his one game, but it's looking like a bell curve right now. Where Maru finally got to a point he could compete, and now Serral is just bashing him back into place. Maru again with the Grady's 3cc, and Serral with another way of dismantling it. That's like the third or fourth direct counter to Maru's most favored strategy. Well, one game away. Serral up 4-1. The last Pigfest finals. He lost to Clem. But he already destroyed Clem to get here. And the rematch against Maru is going an order of magnitude better than expected. And it isn't because Maru's playing... Well, maybe now he's tilted. I don't know. But Maru has not been noticeably worse or throw... Serral just... That has to be... There's no way it's not intentional. He did not show any of these builds in his original loss to Maru. He saved them. The confidence or the calculation to save your new or direct counter strategies until it matters most. What a play. And hard-pressed to see a turnaround now. Maru not trying to wall off the natural. Serral has his expansion. No proxy hatches, no one-base roaches, and interesting, no proxy Raxes out of Maru at all. Usually we get at least one in the first few games, but I don't know if that's a lack of confidence or an appropriate amount of respect. Also, if it's match point, you don't want to lose the tournament on a proxy Rex. Though that's never stopped Maru before. Reaper headed across. Feels like Serral's just letting Maru make the mistakes. Well, obviously he's setting him up for it, but... And it wasn't even a mistake. It's not a mistake, necessarily, to go for 3cc into double NG Bay. It's just super greedy. And even if you know the mutas are coming, obviously it'd be a lot better. But it kind of feels like he'd still be in a very awkward position. Though having missile turrets and marines in position and preventing the first 15 SCVs from... Okay, let's not pretend like that was such a genius build that it would work no matter what. No, there's a reason you don't see mutas very often. It's because they almost immediately die to marines and widow mines, unless you find the near-perfect timing for them to actually have a window to do damage. Otherwise, that window slams shut right in the middle of their weird worm-like bodies, and the pieces go flying all over the field. At great expense, by the way. 100 apiece. 3cc. 3, 2, 1, 1. It's 2 racks. I was like, well, it didn't work the last 3 times. But maybe this time. And then... Serral expands directly down the center. Which... I'm not sure if he got blocked at the third, but... If you're able to hold on to this base, it's great. You can get the creep spread a lot quicker. Not surprised to see the Roach Warren as well. This map has a lot more open space around the third base and on the field than most. Especially the third, though. Which can lead directly to potential Roach all-ins. We also saw Serral use a ingenious new Hydra timing as well. Billy, how much money did you get paid by that Zerg? It was just so cute, Sarge! Cute? Am I cute, Billy? I mean, kinda. The Overlord being targeted. The scouting Hellion Reaper. I can't help but think of it as anything but. Oh, and he saw the Hellions move out before the Overlord died. And the Zerglings move in. And they're not going to get much done, but they drag the Hellions back for a few more seconds. In fact, well, he killed 3 Marines, I guess, but... Already got a layer on the way. 12 more drones. Not building any more lings at all. Completely trusting the queens to defend against the Hellions. And, well, doing well enough thus far. Maru trying to snipe off some of those creep tumors, but... I'm racking my brain here. Like, it already feels like Maru is in an awkward position. That is something you accept usually when you go 3cc into Medivacs. You have no map control. You have the Hellions to mildly inconvenience queens, but barely stop the creep spread. The focus is on getting these two Medivacs with Stim Marines as quick as possible, and they are very quick. But Serral's 4th base, he should have enough roaches to defend. Maru does not have 1-1. It is just Stim Marines, which against roaches and queens, not usually enough. Infestation bit on the way. Maru, 3rd base mining. Serral cut drones at about 63 in order to get enough roaches to deal with this, but now back to droning up. Maru pulling it all together, but he's just not getting anything here. Using scans to clear creep almost feels like a waste at this timing. The creep is so efficient. Only 6 queens, 3 for injects, 3 for utility. Serral usually has multiple hotkeys for the queen. Yeah, he's got several queen groups. The queen defense team, the inject team, sometimes brings them together. The Marines? It was a ruse. Now the real question is whether Serral will get aggressive before Hive Tech or just wait out the Vipers. He's got 82 drones. He's got Hive on the way. +1 Carapace and Roach speed. Hive is halfway there. Well... The queen... Hey, Brenda, why are you going that way? This is the last time I use Apple Maps, Susan. They don't account for the creep speed. You knew that before we started. Yeah, well, I wasn't paying attention, all right? Sorry. Hive is done. Viper immediately. Adrenal glands as well. Baneling speed as the roaches were boxing out. Ravagers for sniping off siege tanks, but Lings and Banes for, you know, everything else, pretty much. 3 Vipers, more than enough to potentially dismantle this attack. Serral's nearly maxed out. 8 minutes. Hive Tech. Vipers finished. Maru's at 150 supply, which is still a lot of army supply, and he's going to have 2-2, somewhat quicker, but still a long way off now. Viper's gathering energy. He's going to try to divide and conquer. The Zerglings will just grab some of the units. A few more split off. The Marines will take out a few Overlords, which are remarkably lackadaisical. Kind of rare to see that, but just hanging out, as they do. 27 Banelings. Now that he's reached 200 supply, that's really the only way to increase the power of the army. The Vipers have energy. The Planetary at the 4th base will be the anvil. Serral is bringing the hammer. Does Maru have the ability to survive the blow? The double drop, but Serral winding up for the attack, and there's just not that many units here. The Vipers at the front. Blinding Cloud will hit the potential Planetary as well. He actually just lifts it off, realizing he might have to abandon this location entirely. Another Blinding Cloud. There's one more tank at the back. He's taking out these tanks with relative ease. He still has 1 Blinding Cloud? Not quite. But Serral just collapsing on Maru, and Maru collapsing beneath him. Parasitic Bomb. He still had energy for a Parabomb. Disgusting. Even the Queen's getting in on the action. And there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Unless it indicates maybe a quick and painless death. Right? Maru just finished 2-2, but Serral has adrenal glands. He's only down by 1 upgrade. Another wave of banelings. The Viper's going to regather energy. And once they have it, the creep is encroaching. Creeping, if you would. The Queen, a bit too forward. But the Vipers have enough for another Parasitic Bomb or Blinding Cloud apiece. Maru's going to try another base. The Drilling Claws. Oh yeah, Ravagers also for the Widow Mines. Well, he has a single... Ooh. Drags out the mine hits. Maru's up to 175 supply, but here comes Serral again. Blinding Cloud of the back line. Forces him to lift up. Just crashes through. And, well, a lot of Banelings exhausted quickly here. Dropping out. A few more Banelings and, well, it's not enough. Serral just blasting his way through. The Banelings finding some more SCVs. Maru might be able to chase this down on the way out. Could start a planetary. The fadeaway shots. Concussive shells is done. So, Serral will be pushed back for now. Did the Vipers survive? Of course they did. No Vipers lost yet. I say yet like it's bound to happen, but is it? And now Serral with everything else. Ultralisk Cavern. Spire on the way. Will he need it? Maybe. Maru has 4 orbital commands. It's not over yet. He's seen enough. The Widow Mines. A few massive Widow Mine hits and a particularly horrible engagement with the Vipers dying before the fight even starts might be enough. But Serral is aware. Just slowly. The creep has to use scans on this. Pulls back with the mines. Maru actually has more army supply here. If he can hold this base, if the planetary is completed, it's committed. That Widow Mine does a lot of damage, but the Blinding Clouds, more Widow Mine hits. Another one really cutting into the efficacy of this army. And despite the loss of the planetary, that was about as good as it was ever going to get for Maru. Well, Serral refilling for another round. I mean, he's got everything. He even has the Spire upgrades on the way, throwing ranged attack into the mix. Nidus Network. The Zergling streaming through again, over 100, but dropping quickly. The Vipers waiting for their potential moment. The Banelings. And, well... Alright, he may have jumped the shark there just a bit. As Serral doesn't have the money to rebuild. He attacked into a concave of Marauders and Widow Mines with mostly Ling Bane. And it went about as well as you might expect. Which is poorly, even for Serral. He did lose a Viper as well. Now, the Banelings rolling in. This time they have some more creep to work with. The Widow Mine's helping out. Maru refusing to go quietly into the night. The Ravagers, not quite enough to knock down the Liberators. And Maru, starting to feel like he has a bit new life. Still has similar supply. Army supply, that is. Parasitic Bomb on the medevac. Quarantines it. Pulls back. The creep is starting to recede. The Ravagers take down one. Widow Mines thin out some of the Lings and Banes, but forced to retreat with the rest. Diffuses another mine in the midst of the fight. Continually stutter stepping back, but the Marines and Marauders are thinning out quickly. This is not a planetary. There's only so many places to retreat back to. As Serral, just too much momentum. And Maru looked like he could fight back. But Serral, make sure that's not the case. The final score of the Pigfest number 7 with your champion, Serral. 5 games to Maru's 1. Breaking out new strategies in a completely new and evolved style of Zerg yet again. Much to the excitement and dismay of Zerg players across the globe. But, well, the king is dead. Long live the king. Serral is back. Defeating Clem and Maru. Well, defeating Hero, defeating Clem, and defeating Maru. The top 3 non-Serral players back to back to back. Well, he's done it again. Thank you to Pig for another incredible tournament. Hopefully you enjoyed the coverage, even if it was a bit strung out. And I hope it made your day at least a little bit better. Thank you for watching. If you got the means and motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon, YouTube membership, but if you're liking and subscribing, you're still free, at least for now. Thank you to our mule tier patrons, Big Jiggy, Devin Door, Kate, Mario Suit. Glad you're still enjoying it. Everyone, make sure to check out this video. We picked it out just for you. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Stay chill.